Doing this little thing and boom.
Hi, everyone. Little surprise for you today. We don't have Kristen here today. It's me, Renae Perry. I'm here with Ben Papapietro, our winemaker, business partner, and my work husband, as we like to say. Cheers to you. And with Petra from the Caviar Company. And today we're going to talk a lot about caviar, teach you everything you've ever wanted to know about caviar, or at least some of everything you wanted to know about caviar, and about the wine that goes with it so well. So we're so happy you're joining us, Petra. And before we even start talking about caviar, I'm going to let Ben tell you what wine he's going to drink today, and then we'll start with that, and then we'll jump right into caviar.
So today we're veering from what the Russians might criticize us for not having chilled vodka, and the French might try to slap us for not having sparkling wine or champagne that is normally and traditionally used to drink with caviar. But we're going to do it a little different. We're going to do Russian River Valley and Sonoma Coast, and the coast will get the marine influence in there on the second part of it. So the first wine we're going to taste with the caviar when we get to that will be the Russian River Valley, and then as we move along, we'll add the Sonoma Coast, and so we'll talk about those two wines as we taste with the caviar. So I'm prepared to give that part of it, but I'm really interested in learning a little bit more about the caviar while I get to use my mother of pearl spoon on this ounce of caviar.
So for those of you who don't know, anyway, we are going to be doing a caviar and wine tasting in January. So that's kind of why we're doing this here, to introduce Petra and the idea of the caviar with the Pinot Noir. As Ben said, normally people drink it with vodka or sparkling wine, but we did a tasting and found out that it goes deliciously well with our Pinot Noir and our Chardonnays too. So, I mean, it's really a very versatile food, and it goes really well with all of our wines. So we wanted to introduce it all, make sure you all know about the tasting that we're going to have, and give you a chance to join us. I wanted to say hi to Wendy Nunes from the Nunes Vineyards joining us today, and also from New Jersey, Ron is here. And so we're going to say hi to them, and then we'll have you, Petra, just talk about how the Caviar Company started, how you got into the business, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, of course. Well, thank you so much for having me, and we're really excited to be here. As Renae said, I'm Petra with the Caviar Company. We are based in San Francisco, where we have our retail store on Union Street in San Francisco, and now we're opening up another location in Tiburon. But I think it's pretty fair to say that I'm really lucky and have a great job where I get to be with amazing people and do caviar playdates and pairing parties and, push the caviar. So I started the Caviar Company with my sister back in 2015, at the very end of 2015. And one of the things that we really wanted to work on was making caviar approachable and figuring out how to push the limits and how far we can push the limits, and take it beyond the vodka and champagne, because like I like to say, there's a different caviar for every week. And with that, there's a different application, variety, vessel, whether it's potato chips or blini, and things like that. So we really like to push the product, and, getting to get together with the folks at Papapietro was really cool. We got to go up to their winery, and they not only hosted us for a great lunch, we also got to, we sat down at this table and we had jars of caviar running around the table. We had bottles of wine all the way up and down the table. The table was full of glasses of wine. So as you can imagine, that was a really fun afternoon. And we put together this really exciting pairing that we think works, that we can't wait for you guys to taste if you join us in January. So again, we're really happy to be here and to have, hopefully you guys follow us along in January and get to taste it for yourself, because, there are different caviars that have different distinctive characteristics, whether it's really mild and creamy or more minerality and earthiness. And so we went through a few of those products to see what would hold up to these really beautiful, with the Pinot and Sonoma Coast or Russian River Pinot. And I think we really got successful with this team, and we really would love for you guys to experience it too.
Caviar is a lot like wine. We say, in the things that how how you got into your business is a lot the way we got into our business. You started in your home. We started in our garage. There were so many similarities that we really so enjoyed sharing with you when we're here. I mean, it was a very fun tasting, I must admit. There can't have too much caviar, we said. I did buy some for Thanksgiving from you to have with my family, and the only complaint I had was there wasn't enough. And we had 4 ounces of caviar there. We just were like, I could eat a lot more than that. I want my own bowl, little thing. I have a little, Ben and I both have caviar here. Here we go. This is what it looks like. And it's kept in ice like Ben has it right there to keep it cold. It's very important. We learned that, to keep it very cold. Can you explain why we use an abalone spoon or mother of pearl spoon?
Yeah, of course. We say it's very similar almost to like tea. If you leave the teaspoon in your tea will start to taste metallic. It's very similar with caviar. If you leave a metal spoon inside of your caviar jar, it can start to taste metallic. So if it's a really quick scoop that you're just, it's a little risky, but it'll be fine. But we do encourage using pearl, shell, horn, bone. Can use wood, but if it's not a treated wood, then sometimes it'll absorb the oils, which the oils are part of the decadence and the experience of caviar. So you don't want to, suck those up very much. So spoon is a really great traditional way to go, and it's a really nice presentation.
We also have noticed that caviar pricing is quite different all over the place. Like you can go into Costco and buy caviar or your grocery store, but you explained to us and would explain to everyone else why there's differences in where your caviar is sourced.
Yeah, absolutely. So for example, even for us, we have 12 different we offer 8 different species of sturgeon, 12 different roe across the board. So for the sturgeon, for example, our sturgeon caviar starts at $40 an ounce and goes all the way up to $165 an ounce. And a big thing with the pricing, a lot of it has to do with where the fish is coming from, whether they're imported or domestic, because obviously with imported caviar, there are a lot more fees and CITES permits and things just to bring in the caviar. But then also a lot of it has to do with the age. Like if you were to go down our price list and see from low to high, it's safe to assume that from low are the younger fish. And as you get higher in the price list, the fish get older. And so it's kind of that labor of love, and you can compare it to wine in so many ways, versus the amount of time to bottle the wine and to sell the wine versus, that has some caviars that have a really quick turnaround. Like, for example, the hackleback that we'll be tasting in January, it's a really great fish because it's one of the last wild caviars available. Everything these days really has to be farmed. But the reason why it can be wild is because it produces eggs really young. So they probably start to spawn between 2 and 5 years old, which is very young for a sturgeon. And so because they spawn at such a young age, the stocks are plentiful, they're reproducing regularly, and so we can still get it wild. But then you have something like our local white sturgeon, we don't process those eggs until maybe more between 5, 8 years, or even 12 years old. Then your ocetras, they sometimes don't spawn until they're late teens, so like 18 years old. Even for a golden ocetra, for example, everyone hears about Iranian golden ocetra. We can no longer get Iranian ocetra here, but it allowed, like, that fish, the reason why it's so coveted and so special is because that part, near Iran, that southern part of the Caspian Sea is really even more dark, deep, and cold than the rest of the Caspian Sea. And so for those sturgeon that are living in that area, they have to be really old in order to successfully spawn, with those elements. And so when they spawn, the eggs are amazing. They're huge. They have great texture, really a lot of fats and flavor. And so again, a lot of it has to do with the age and how readily available it is.
Didn't you also tell us that it's pasteurized versus not pasteurized? Was there something about that?
So if you're buying caviar at like Costco or Bevmo, or sometimes your local Safeway, a lot of those grocery stores require that the caviar is pasteurized because, you know, they need to have a better shelf life, and they don't have the same, they're in an open refrigerator, so it doesn't get as cold as like keeping it in an enclosed refrigerator. So if it's pasteurized, we kind of say it basically sucks the life out of caviar. It really absorbs, like when you do that pasteurization, it really gets those oils out and everything that we love about caviar. So we say caviar really should have a shelf life. So for example, like our products, the shelf life is 4 to 6 weeks old, but sometimes like I could probably go to Safeway now and look, and the shelf life might be March or something. And, you know, if it's good for months, then you know it either has a preservative in it or it's pasteurized, which definitely does hurt the value and the experience of the caviar.
That's so interesting that, how many types of caviar are there?
So the species sturgeon is only native to the Northern Hemisphere. And so in the Northern Hemisphere, I think there's like 27 different species of sturgeon. And a lot of them are in the US, which people don't realize, because a lot of people think that only good caviar comes from Russia. But what they don't realize is actually back in the 80s, whenever the stocks were starting to dwindle in the Caspian, Russians were coming over to the US, taking our white sturgeon, which is our local West Coast, San Francisco, Sacramento area sturgeon, and then they would take it back to Russia, make caviar in Russia, and then sell it back to the US as Russian caviar at an exorbitant price, because they could. If you were to see something Russian caviar, you think that it's a premium product, but it was likely could have been coming from, your own backyard, actually.
So Ben, have you tried the caviar with the wine?
I'd like to say, I fished in San Francisco Bay for almost 30 years, and in all the years that we fished, we only caught one keeper sturgeon that had eggs, and it was a 115-pound hen that had 13 pounds of growth. And we actually did the caviar ourselves. We did it in a 7% solution in ice water, and broke the skeins in there and did that, and it came out fantastic. I don't know. I'm getting a call here. We were able to process it, and I learned how to make caviar from an old Frenchman that used to be the chef at the old Poodle Dog restaurant in San Francisco. It was an amazing class and very easy. We were very surprised about how easy it is to do it. The hard part is getting the eggs
separated, with the sieve. And that's the thing, is actually, caviar doesn't have to be complicated. Like you say, it's really a simple thing. The only thing that should ever be added to caviar is salt. We don't feel like it should ever be pasteurized or have preservatives. And just, good salt, just good kosher salt, and you really, the percentage, that's where it's a lot of trial and error, figuring out the perfect salt percentage for each specific species of sturgeon.
Yeah, is there a specific type of salt? Is there a specific type of salt that you use?
It kind of depends on the farm. Most of it's just like regular kosher salt, but there are areas that are known to not make great salt for caviar. For example, there is a species of sturgeon native to England, but England could never make good caviar because the English salt is actually really bad. Like Spanish salt in Spain, they were, historically made great caviar because of the salt that they had.
Well, Ben, how about wine and caviar?
All right. Well, today, the first one I've tasted with my first couple samples was the Russian River Valley, and it's so good. Sweet earth, I think, makes up for it, and when you taste it, you'll kind of get that earthiness that really goes along well with the earthiness of the caviar. So that kind of blends together. The Russian River that we're tasting now rides a wonderful line of earth and fruit. There's cherry, raspberry, pomegranate flavors that weave their way around a very compelling line of clean earth and dust. The wine opens up with a little bit more oak influence and emerges with fresh tea and mineral notes. Compelling flavors are delivered, refreshing acidity. I think the acidity is the balance to go along, having a red wine go along with the caviar. And this is just a very classy Russian River Valley, and it's highlighted with Russian-style caviar.
That's great. Yeah, Russian River Valley. Oh, by the way, everyone, I am filming this right in the tasting room, so when you see Nancy walking back behind me or you hear phone rings, there's still a little action here, so we're trying to keep it down, but just so in case you hear anything, you'll know.
Season 2.
How about the health benefits of caviar? How many calories does it have? Is it fat? Is it good for you?
Yeah, we say it's really similar to.
Keep eating some.
Oh, good. Yeah, like I was telling you, it has. It is known as like a superfood and has really high in like selenium. Obviously, those fish oils and omegas and those really good fats. It also has, I think the selenium is the immunity booster, but I'll have to look it up. But it is a really healthy supplement. Just like oysters, they say it's also really good for a hangover. So for the next day, have it on your eggs for your, breakfast of champions. But like I was telling you earlier, Renae, is that my daughter loves it. I have a 1.5-year-old, and I bring her caviar on a regular basis. And I was joking earlier that she better be really smart or we're going to be in trouble. And again, I don't know if I'm setting her up for failure or success. So we'll see. But yeah, it's got a ton of health benefits.
It's kind of hard when you get weaned on the finer things in life, it's hard to go back. I was telling you, and I'll tell everyone, that my nieces and nephews all have been drinking, Papapietro Perry. Even as children, we would let them have a little taste or put some with water. How, we don't think alcohol is a bad thing. Wine, we think it's a food. And then my nieces and nephews would be, you've ruined us. We can't drink cheap wine, and they don't have enough money to buy expensive Pinot Noir. So it's caviar and Pinot. It seems like a good mix to me.
Yeah, good combo there.
Yeah. So they said, I guess we learned that caviar is so healthy that some countries think of it like chicken soup. They eat it to keep them healthy, or when they're not feeling well, they'll eat caviar to boost their immune system and get themselves healthy. It's the chicken soup of wealthy people, I guess.
Yeah. What's funny is it started out as food for like peasants in Russia. During the time of Lent, the Russian Orthodox Church said that it was okay to eat sturgeon during Lent because sturgeon is considered a fin fish as opposed to a scale fish like salmon or trout. And so again, that's kind of how we classify caviar has to come from that fin fish of a sturgeon. But so during that time, actually, they would take the meat and dump out the eggs. And so people who could afford the meat, they would buy that. And then people who couldn't afford the meat, they throw.
Like lobster used to be bottom fish that nobody wanted to eat. And now you have to pay a lot of money to eat it.
Yeah, wasn't it? It was served to prisoners, I think, around Australia. Maybe?
Yeah, it was it was definitely like, not lobster again.
Yeah, everything
well,
was
what's the best way to eat caviar? Maybe you could tell us about that, because we're used to seeing it on a platter with a lot of accoutrement, but, what should we do?
That's actually a really, really good point and great question. So I'm glad you kind of introed that over. So we actually don't always recommend all the accoutrement with the I love chives. I will say I do like a little sprinkle of chive, but the onion, capers, Ben's kind of demonstrating it perfectly right now, just off the spoon. But, all of those really strong flavors of the caper, lemon, onion, and egg, they all came from France. And that tradition kind of came about. They were just adding to it, and back when they didn't have cool transport from Russia to France. So by the time the caviar would get there, it'd be spoiled. So it'd be really fishy, really salty, and probably really have a strong smell to it. They would use those strong flavors to mask bad caviar. That's where that tradition came about. But it is a really fun presentation, and to have that variety and to be able to accessorize your caviar is a nice tradition. But then the eggs and egg white also came from France, because caviar was so expensive. And so they would use the egg white, the chopped egg white and egg yolk to kind of fluff up the bite, and then they would small amount of caviar, and so then you're having your caviar mousse, boucher, caviar dish. But we really we love potato chips. We do like blini and creme fraiche, very traditional, very easy. I do like to keep it easy around my house if I'm serving. The one thing that I'll cook and prepare sometimes are like fingerling potatoes. I'll roast them, cut them in half, and take just a small little circle bit out of it, fill that with creme fraiche, caviar on top, and then a small sprinkle of chive. And that's a really, really good appetizer to pass around. We've also found that if you are hosting and wanting to serve caviar, that you can make it stretch a lot further if you do pre-plate it in that way. Whether you go ahead and put it on blini and creme fraiche and have a tray full of caviar, as opposed to like, Renae, if you were coming to my party, I would probably have to have either like a special tin put aside for you, or figure out a way to make sure that you have plenty of caviar to enjoy yourself.
So what about eating it on my hand like you had told us to do? So maybe you could talk about that.
Of course. So we call that, it's called the caviar bump. We did not come up with the name, but it is the oldest and most traditional way of tasting caviar. So all the way back in the 1500s, you used to be able to buy caviar. I have one right here, actually. In like we call it in caviar terms is an OT, or original tin. So figure out this camera here. A lot of you might recognize this tin. This is like what every caviar farm all around the world uses to make their caviar. This is about you can fit about 3.3 pounds in here. It's like my face. But anyway, so you used to be able to buy it in this, like at the fish market, and they would just scoop some on the back of your hand from each tin, just like, throw it on the back of your hand, and then you would taste it. And that's how you knew, like, oh, I'll take that tin, because they all vary. Whatever's in this tin should only come from one fish. So then they all have different characteristics, and you can see like, okay, well, this one's more creamy. I like the creamy. I'll take this tin. But what's funny is a lot of people come into our store and they see these tins and they're like, oh, that's the type of caviar I've had. And then we go in to explain, actually, all caviar really comes in this tin. This is how it's processed. They just put the caviar in here, put the salt in here, let it sit for a little bit and do its thing, and it's ready to go.
So Chris Sawyer is on, and he says hello to you.
Hi.
And a friend of mine from high school, Jerry Laevsky, is also on. We went to high school and elementary school and Hebrew school. I mean, I think everything together. And when we were kids, and he's also listening. So hi to you.
Cool.
Very exciting. Is there anything that caviar doesn't go with? Like anything you should avoid? Like, sometimes we say don't drink Pinot with artichokes, Don't
drink Kool-Aid with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't found, I found pairings that are better than others, but I haven't found something to where I'm like, ooh. I think the thing is most caviar can be on the delicate side. So if anything, it just gets masked. So if it's not a good pairing, then we completely lose the caviar. But I wouldn't say, so obviously that's not an ideal situation, but it's not bad. It's not super negative. You just lose it and you miss out on the experience.
So if you've ever held, well, we fished for sturgeon and caught sturgeon different size. If you've ever seen a sturgeon, they're prehistoric. They're diamond shapes on the side of them, and they don't have bones. They have cartilage, and
really?
they're very interesting fish, and very prehistoric. I think they are. And in San Francisco, in the San Pablo Bay is one of the areas that is flush with sturgeon.
Yeah, it's so cool. I think the white sturgeon is the species of sturgeon that you would be fishing for. And everyone watching, like if you put it into your, Google it, there's such cool cool creatures. And they are, you know, they're as old as dinosaurs. They're prehistoric endangered species. And like, you can tell they have these defense mechanisms, not only in their hide, like their skin's really tough, but also they have these scutes, you know, on their back that help protect them. And that's, you know, they were made well and made right. And that's how there's, I guess, still around now, as long as we can help it, you know. That's
how they get to be like 1,200 pounds.
Yeah.
Nobody, except for humans, but they every once in a while they catch a monster out of Columbia River, you know, 1,500 pound fish. You go, oh, holy smokes.
That's also sturgeon too. Yeah.
If they're an endangered species, how are we going to continue to eat caviar for the rest of our lives?
Farming. All really to be coming from farms, and really responsible farms that don't take anything from the wild stocks. Like, for example, the farm that we source our white sturgeon from, I used to work for, and they have their own brood stock. So they have females that they keep, you know, alive in the farm. They spawn every 2 years or so. And so they're part of the spawning. Every year we do a spawning where we remove the eggs from those females, and they survive. They're, you know, they heal really easily, and they're known to produce great fish that produce great roe. And then we manually, you know, we take the sperm from the males and fertilize it. And, you know, 7 days or so later, the eggs hatch and turn into little bitty fish. And so it's all self-sustainable and all within the same farm. And I think that's really important, because you're not affecting the wild
population.
You know, people have a funny attitude about farmed fish. You know, I think somewhat misinformed. We eat everything else we eat is farmed. I don't know why we think we can't eat a farmed fish, that somehow a farmed fish is going to be a thing that's not good for us. But, you know, there is that misconception in there when you go to buy fish. If it's farmed, they'll, oh no, but, you know, there's a real reason why we farm the fish, and they're farmed ethically, and so that they're better for you, and that we can keep on eating them. Really, isn't that true?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the salmon farming really got a bad rap because people think about the dyes and the, you know, frozen, unfrozen, frozen, unfrozen, and things like that. But it's definitely, I think people, you know, just doing your research and doing your homework, learning more about it, because again, farming actually is really important. You just want to make sure that you're working with the right farm that's doing the right practices that are here for why we have farming, you know.
Mm-hmm. Well, is there? Go ahead.
I mean, I'm waiting for when they really do the farming of abalone, because the wild abalone stock is done. I mean,
yeah.
So hopefully they've been working on that too. So farmed abalone will be another wonderful product, and look forward to that.
Yeah, I hope so too.
Yeah, we wouldn't get any spoons unless they farm abalone.
Yeah, sometimes they're from pearl too, from the shell. So, but we do like the ones with the really pretty green, rich colors too.
Well, that is really all very interesting. Thank you so much, Petra, for being with us and telling us all about caviar. I hope it was informative to everyone. I just want to remind everyone that we will be having a wine and caviar tasting on January 9th, and that you can go to our website, papapietro-perry.com, to sign up. We'll send you the wine. Petra will send you the caviar. We'll have a wonderful tasting. You'll get to learn even more about caviar, the proper way to put it in your mouth, and everything else about caviar that we didn't cover today.
Yeah, this is just a minor primer.
Teaser. This is a little teaser to get you to want to join us. We do have quite a few people already, but we're really excited about this, and hope that you'll join us. We're also added a new paint and sip. We've done that once before, where we have people painting a little picture on a wooden barrel stave, and it's kind of really fun. You drink wine, you paint with Sonia, who's an artist and does these things regularly. So we have that coming up on January 21st, if they're interested. We are trying to do a lot of virtual fun events to keep everybody occupied and entertained during this lovely time that we're in of COVID. And even when, hopefully this comes to an end, we're still going to do these things, because we found that there's so much fun and people just can't get here as often as we'd like them to. So we're going to keep reaching out in various ways to make you all feel part of our family. We hope that that's the way you feel. We also have private events available for people who have a group. If you have a company, no holiday parties, you have a business, you have family. If you have a larger group, we can arrange private tastings, even a private caviar tasting, probably, if that's what you were interested in. And any of our other events that you'll see on our website. So if you're interested in that, you can let us know that. Email events@papapietro-perry.com, and we'll get you set up with those. We're the virtual place to be, so hope you'll join us. Cheers, and thank you both for being here. Thanks, Ben, and
Thanks, Ben.
you.
Petra,
Bye, cheers.
thank you for the caviar.
Yeah,
Cheers.
we really appreciate the caviar.
Thank you so much. It's lovely.
Okay, bye.
Bye. Have a good day.